Hi guys, Jay Smith here, welcome to the AskGolfNut channel and welcome to PXG, the release of their new drivers of 2026. I've got the Lightning Max 10K model in my hands, and of course by the name you kind of gives it away as to what this driver is all about. It's all about the Max, it's all about the 10K, the moment of inertia, that wonderful thing that has been going around now for a few years. Ping started it and of course everyone has copied because 10K is effectively stability, MOI, moment of inertia. When you don't hit the middle, how stable is the head? So MOI, or stability as such, might be great talking about forgiveness or consistency, but actually when it comes to how consistent a driver is, when you hit out the middle, it goes a certain distance. When you don't hit it out the middle, how much distance do you lose? This is why we do the heat maps. I'll be doing the distance factor heat maps at the second half of the video. Hit this driver all over the face to see how good it really is. Tech-wise, we have plenty of it. I will do a very, very quick summary. Effectively, it's a faster face. They're saying they've got a frequency-tuned face, which is basically this. When you hit the face with a ball, there's a lot of noise that happens, a lot of shock, a lot of vibration that goes through the head, goes through the sole, goes through the crown, goes through all parts of the golf club. And effectively what they're trying to do with that stiffened up sole is they're trying to reflect that frequency back towards the face for some added ball speed. There is also 84% more carbon fiber in this Max 10K in the sole than there was in the old Black Ops. We now have 4 models to choose from. We've got the Max 10K here in my hands. We've also got the Tour Mid. We've also now got the Tour, which is their low spin option. And of course, we now actually have a Max Light. I'll be testing this at 3 different swing speeds, 80, 95, and 110 miles an hour, because again, we all don't swing at tour speeds. I will try as best I can to try and keep my speed down, because obviously being silly season, I've got a lot of golf clubs to test, and I don't want to hurt the knee any more than it currently already hurts. We are at a hole, as you can see here. We are carrying over a corner for a bit of fun. Why not? This is YouTube, and we're going to go for blind fairway finding. Looks wise in the golf club, top line wise, it is lovely and carbon. All of the 4 models have carbon at the top, a very distinctive carbon weave. When it comes to the sole, you do have that weirdly arrow triangular pattern on the sole, which effectively that's the part they're trying to stiffen up to help that face frequency match in to try and get a little bit more ball speed. We do have the 2 weight ports at the front, which are I think 2.5 grams of standard, and we do have a larger weight port at the back, which I think is about 15 grams. And because of the max weight you're allowed and max MOI, etc., when it comes to conforming of rules of golf, I think 17.5 grams is the largest amount you can have in that back weight. But the great thing with PXG, with those 3 weights, is you can move them around, add different weights. They all come in different weight amounts to try and give you a certain bias of flight. When it comes to bias of flight, in the second half of the video, we'll see as a neutral how biased this golf club is. It's quite a nice looking driver, very much so similar really to the Black Ops, and if you've seen my previous video of Black Ops, you know how much I really like that driver. It's a very, very good driver, very, very consistent. It'd be interesting to see if this Max 10K is just as consistent. Right, let's go give it a hit, see if we can kind of hit the blind fairway. That's my fault, overclosed. Are we going to run out of fairway? Made it a long shot in to this par 4 or 5. That's okay. Club head speed 102 miles an hour, club path 2.2 from the inside with the face just slightly over closing. 1.6 degrees, just giving that little extra flight to the left-hand side. 7mm toe, add a little bit of draw biased gear effect to the shot with 3mm low, which is basically middle. But we're going 251 yards in the air, 273 total, 36 yards offline, because again, we are hitting over. Now, of course, we're dog leg to the right hand side, so we've probably got a little bit more wiggle room. It's just going to mean it's going to be a slightly longer shot going into the green. But we're going 29.7 yards in the air and 36.2 degrees descent angle, which means when it hits the ground, it will chase forward. That's the great thing, having a descent angle under 40 degrees. It's going to hit the ground and keep on going. Now, feeling wise, it's definitely carbon. You can absolutely hear the carbon sound when you hit it. And I'm not surprised, there's plenty of carbon here. You've got carbon in the crown, carbon in the sole, plenty of carbon in the sole. And of course, that will give it its unmistakable carbon sound. This one's still got a pleasant pitch to it, very much so carbon. And if you like the carbon sound, then you'll like this because it definitely does sound that way. Give it another go. That's the shape I want. However, are we going to run out of, no, we should be good. That's a much, much better shot. Much shorter shot into the green then. Club speed 104 miles an hour on the dot. We're looking at club path 1.5 from the inside. Face to path is 0.5, so effectively 0. 11 mil toe, 5 mil low, so it is a little bit toey. That's why it's giving it its draw flight. But we are going 254 yards of carry, 274 total. 8 yards offline, so again, that's that little draw from the toe. But effectively, we're going 36 yards in the air and 41.3 degrees descent angle. So 41.3 is just slightly over 40 degrees, so it's not going to have the chase bounce and roll that I would love to have. But again, I was spinning at 2.7, so again, that's slightly low on the face, slightly toey, not ideal strike, etc. Again, it would be interesting to see if you hit it slightly high in the face, if it starts dropping down the spin. And again, we will look at that on the second half of the video when it comes to all the different spin metrics to see how stable this golf club is. Feeling wise, it's actually quite nice. It is definitely carbon. You can absolutely feel the carbon. If you're a carbon lover of a driver sound in that way, then you'll love this. It definitely does sound and feel very much so carbon, but apart from the face, effectively it's made completely of carbon. Let's go give it another hit. It does look good, it does feel good, it just works really well. That's a proper one. Will it hit the tree though? No, it's over the tree. Which means though it might suffer on its descent angle a little bit, but that's right exactly where we want it. Definitely. Club speed 104.7 miles an hour, club path 3.7 from the inside, so slightly too much from the inside with the face slightly closed, and that's why it's given its little draw baby flight. Again, I'm trying to keep my speed down a little bit, and when I take speed away, it has the effect of making me a little bit more from the inside. But 12 mil toe, 8 mil low, that's not middle by any stretch of the imagination, so it's doing quite well to hit target. 257 yards of carry, 276 total distance. We are not even 7 yards offline, which is good. 35.6 yards in the air, 40.9 degrees descent angle. Again, that's because of the strike. 8 mil low is going to add a little bit of spin, 2.6 again. So of course that's going to make it climb a fraction too much, but effectively 41 degrees is still absolutely fine. That's still gaining about 20 yards or so of roll. Considering that is not middle, I think it's done rather well. It'll be really interesting to see what the heat map looks like on this golf club, because again, we are not hitting the middle, and that's my fault, not the golf clubs. It's just me on a day. I, generally speaking, have a propensity to generally hit slightly high toe as a norm, but I'm a human being. I move around the face from day to day, and I'm not always exactly the same place and all the time as normal golfers are. So again, you do need a little bit of consistency or forgiveness from a golf club when you're not having your best day. But I think from a point of view of result, I think it's done absolutely fine. All 3 shots so far. Give it another go. Well, that's again straight over that tree. That's a bit more brave line this time. I'm not quite sure if it's a good idea to be brave or not, but it is making the second shot shorter. Club head speed 103.9 miles an hour. Club path again, slightly from the inside, 2.9 degrees as face is basically 0. 0 mil hill, 4 mil low, so I'm getting closer to the middle. Not bang on, but 4 millimeters low is absolutely fine. We're going 256 yards of carry, 276 yards of total distance. Again, about sort of 20 yards or so of added roll, 36.5 yards in the air and 41.2 degrees descent angle. So it is really consistent on its flight. I'll give it that. Definitely really consistent on its carry as well. And considering I'm not hitting the middle every time, it's still doing a really good job of keeping up the carry and keeping up the distance that I would expect it to do from the speed that I'm currently swinging around about sort of 103, 104 or so miles an hour. If I normally swing 110 to 112, I risk the knee hurting a bit as I push up through ground force, and so I'm trying to keep that one at bay if I can. Feels really nice. Really feels really nice. I quite like this driver, I really do. But then I like PXG drivers. The previous Black Ops was really quite good, felt really good, and did a really good job. So it'll be interesting to see how well this one does. Right, let's go hit this at 3 different swing speeds, 80, 95, 110 miles an hour. Let's go see how well it works at those 3 different speeds. Let's also get that heat map understanding of how good this is when you don't hit the middle. I've already hit a few shots in and around the face today, but I'm talking a little bit more extreme, see how well this does at trying to keep the distance up across the face. Let's go see how good this new PXG Lightning Max 10K driver really is. On the screen you can see the efficiency heat map for the PXG Lightning Max 10K driver, and if a driver was going to be determined on how good it was from the efficiency heat map point of view, you would say it's an amazing driver, and all drivers look this way. So a lot of manufacturers put a lot of effort, a lot of work when it comes to design, trying to make these drivers as efficient as they possibly can do. And the marketing that goes along with the drivers is very much so focused on the efficiency side of things. However, with roll and bulge, we've got a curved face with the driver, different to a flat-faced iron. When it comes to ball speed retention is one thing, but it's not the be-all and end-all because of the curved face. You'll have different launches, you have different spin rates, and of course then you have different distances applied to different parts of the face. And it's not until you go to the distance factor map that you see a slight difference. So if you haven't seen these before, this is a face-on representation of how the face works. You'll have a certain amount of whatever it does out the middle, say zero distance from a, say, 250 yard or 200 yard or whatever it be. And of course, then you move around the face, and because of launch differences and spin differences, you end up with a different overall distance compared to that of the middle. And so if you haven't seen this before, on the left-hand side, you've got -30, that is the toe side of things, +30 on the right-hand side, that is the heel. You've got high and also low. You've got 0, 0, which is the middle of the golf club, and then you've got the green, yellow, orange, red, and a little bit of blue. So the green is obviously, green is good, yellow is absolutely fine, orange is so-so, and red is definitely not good. And you can see on this driver down the bottom left-hand side with the overlay, it's not until you get onto the extreme heel, extreme toe, that you start going into the red on this driver. But you do have that little blue spot. That little blue spot is a hot spot, not necessarily from the speed point of view, but from the distance point of view. If you hit it out the middle, 0, 0, it goes no distance loss whatsoever, and then you gain a certain amount, a fraction amount, if you go slightly high toe. That is because of the roll and bulge face. You get a slightly higher launch with the hitting slightly higher, and because also hitting slightly higher, you get a bit of gear effect reducing the spin. You get that slightly higher launch, low spin flight, and you then add a fraction of distance, 1% or so. But it's actually a pretty decent size. Again, if you're going to be moving around the face on extreme sides of things, and extreme tones, extreme heel, then you're going to see a large distance loss. But you can go all the way to 20 or so millimeters off of the toe, and you're losing about 3% of your distance, which isn't bad at all. 20 millimeters is a fair decent miss. If you go to 20 millimeters on the heel, you can see it's starting to lose a little bit more. You are losing nearly 5%, 4 to 5% of your distance if you go towards the heel, 20 mil. But again, 20 millimeters one way to 20 millimeters the other way is a fair decent miss. 40 millimeters. And so if you're going to be moving around even further than that on the face, I think necessarily lessons would be a better idea than worrying about how consistent a driver is. 3 different swing speeds. This is where we capture 80, 95 and 110 miles an hour, because we all don't swing at tall speeds. This is all at 4.5 degrees upward angle attack, because I hit up slightly on a driver and delivered loft of approximately 16 degrees. Again, I add a little bit of loft, 1 degree or so more than my angle attack. And again, that's just different golfers will deliver different things, but I deliver basically the same on all drivers. Effectively, you'll then see a difference, a comparison between how one driver works against another, also at 3 different swing speeds. So let's go the 80 mile an hour first. Ball speeds of 115 miles an hour, we'll round it up, 114.7, launching at 13.3 degrees and spinning at 1637. That's not a lot. 1637 is borderline not even have enough spin to keep the golf ball up in the air. Remember, this is at 10.5 degrees. PXG do make variations of their lofts. I'll just put the specifications up on the screen now so you can actually see the composition of all the different heads that they make and what different lofts. And of course you have that loft sleeve as well. So you can opt up the loft if you want to. Now this is a 9-degree head up to 10.5. Of course, basically running out of wiggle room now when it comes to the 9-degree head. But as you say, you do have different heads available, and absolutely for a slow swing speed golfer at 80 miles an hour, absolutely I would be going to a higher lofted option, and then you can have a little bit of wiggle room either way if you wish, because 1637 I'd be wanting to get a little bit more spin. I definitely want to get a bit more launch as well for that slower swing speed, and of course that will add a little bit of distance, add a little bit of functionality, and more so add a little bit more wiggle room if you hit it slightly high in the face, like we saw when it comes to the heat maps. The heat maps are great because obviously you understand how a head physically works. The problem is you hit high in the face, it launches fractionally higher, but it spins it fractionally less. At 1637 baseline, that's going to fall out of the sky. So you're trying to gain a little bit here, gain a little bit there. You'll more than lose it when it comes to a slight miss hit, and that's the only problem with that. I would absolutely go to a high lofted head, give you a bit more wiggle room, add some spin, add some launch, and add some functionality of flight. Go to 95 miles an hour and you've got ball speed now 136.2 miles an hour. Launch angle's at 13.3. Again, launch angle does not change when you change speed. Effectively, ball speed change, peak height will change, descent angle change, carry change, etc. But launch won't change. Spin's now at 1944. 1944 is borderline on the spin number. I like to see a spin number just over 2000. I do just under 2000 because you don't have any wiggle room unless you're an incredibly good striker of the golf ball and do not change your delivery whatsoever. 1944 sub 2000 for especially for a 95 mile an hour swing is borderline when it comes to its functionality of flight. You don't have to move too much high on the face to get that vertical drop off through gear effect of spin, and you're looking at potentially trying to gain a little bit here. No difference to the 80 miles an hour that we saw, but you could be losing a lot more if that ball doesn't have enough lift from the backspin to keep it in the air and it drops out the sky. So I would rather, if I was going to a 95 mile an hour, still go to a slightly higher lofted head and then have that wiggle room, have that availability to up the loft, so we can up some launch a little bit, 13.3 to 14 to 15 degrees maybe, and get that spin up to over 2000. That will give you the wiggle room just in case you mishit it, and so you don't lose out on distance. Go to 110 miles an hour, ball speed's now 158 miles an hour, we'll round it up, 157.7. Launch again, no different, 13.3, but spin's now at 2251. So this actually is a really very, very good number. It gives you plenty of wiggle room if you have a slight mishit. Of course, if you're going to be swinging at 110 miles an hour, you are going to want a slightly different flight to that of, say, someone who swings it slower. And of course, you're looking at launching at 13.3. If you hit it slightly higher in the face, then you'll get a slightly higher launch angle with a slightly less spin, 2251. You've got that wiggle room now, and you could potentially gain a little bit more in distance by hitting slightly higher on the face. Again, you've got that wiggle room. If you don't have that wiggle room, you are looking at trying to be a bit picky when it comes to your spin number, and you have to be very, very precise with your delivery and with your strike. If you are not, and you don't have that wiggle room, remember, drivers are very long, you're 45 plus inches away, and so your propensity to miss, obviously as the shafts get longer, is greater, and so I would always try to get a custom fit based on having a little bit of room for you to mess up, to make a mistake effectively, rather than get ultimate peak performance considering you do have misses. So before we go to the advanced gauges, all this information that you see when it comes to heat maps, the 3 different swing speeds, the self-fit tool, especially for the driver, and also these gauges that we'll see in a second, is all available on my website, www.askgolfnut.com. When it comes to the iron database, we have over 100 irons in the database already. When it comes to the drivers, we are slightly more in its infancy, shall we say, when it's driver database, because it's taken a lot longer when it comes to the drivers to try and get the metrics and everything sorted out because of that curved face. With a flat-faced iron, it's a lot easier to work out how to measure things, and when it comes to a driver you need a larger data sets, etc. So unfortunately, when it comes to the older products and older reviews that I've done in the past, it's not a simple thing of just transfer them into the database, because unfortunately we didn't have enough shots from previous. But when it comes to certain ones of old, and especially all the new ones, again, we're going into 2026 with the silly season, they will all be on www.askgolfnut.com for you all to compare. Now, this is a measure of how the head works, basically. We've got face speed, we've got launch factor, face spin rate, and then we've got the vertical spin changes and side spin changes and bias. Now, if we go face speed first, face speed is basically measure like for like. Everything's loft for loft adjusted, effectively how fast the face is. Now, it's not either good or bad, because different golfers will want potentially different things, but effectively, really, for a face speed point of view, it's always good to have as fast as face as possible. The driver has got one job and one job only, to go as far as it possibly can do. So if it can go as fast as it possibly can do, it would obviously promote a bit more ball speed, etc. Ball speed with whatever launch angle and spin rate is going to encourage a little bit more distance. But it's got a, within reason, an average face speed. Is it massively fast? No. Is it massively slow? No. It's just doing a very decent job of being in and around average. When it comes to launch factor though, and this is the important thing, the launch factor, it's a very high launching driver for the database, what we've got at the moment, and when it comes to the face spin rate, it's a low to average spinning driver. So this, when it comes to optimal distance potential, is actually really very, very good. And the fact that it's the max 10K. I haven't seen kind of numbers like this really since going back to the G430 Max 10K. When they brought out the Max 10K, it was supposed to go in between the Max and then the LS Tech. Now, with the Max 10K from the G430, they made it so it launched very high and it also spun in quite a decent window as well. And we're finding exactly the same thing with the PXG Lightning 10K Max, because it is a very, very good driver from optimizing your distance. Vertical spin change is basically a measure of when you move up and down on the face, when you move per millimeter up and down the face, how much spin changes when you have that movement up and down. And of course, that's for effectively stability of flight, going back to what I was saying when it comes to the slightly lower spin, and then you hit high on the face and you get that reduction, that gear effect that pulls the backspin off. If you go low on the face, you get a slightly lower launch, but then you add spin. It's designed for roll and bulge, it's designed within the golf club, and some golf clubs are much more sensitive to vertical and then side. We'll do the side in a sec. But this is in the medium category. It's not necessarily hugely sensitive, but then it's not very, very stable either. It's in that average butter zone of normal, and so if you are someone who moves high on the face, low on the face, etc., you are not going to see huge amounts of differences in flight on this driver. There are other golf clubs on the database which exhibit a little bit more in the way of curvature from a vertical point of view. If you go side spin axis, this is a measure of how much when you move left to right on the face, toe and heel, depending on where your miss is, and of course different golfers will miss in different places, and how much that golf ball will want to turn, want to curve, veer off line when you move laterally across the face. So if you are someone who hits a miss laterally across the face of your driver, then potentially you do want a more stable head, and of course this one is in the low to medium, which is actually doing quite well. Every millimeter that you move laterally across, it adds or takes away, depending on which way you move, 0.58 of a degree of tilt axis curvature to the golf ball. So it's doing pretty well when it comes to a spin axis change. Bias, it's a fairly simple one. When you've got neutral right in the middle, that's effectively if you hit the golf ball out of the middle, strike zero, face zero, everything's zero, lie zero, like a robot would, how does that want to turn the golf ball? Is it biased in one way or not? So you've got draw bias heads, you've got fade bias heads, and ones that hit neutral, and within 0.5 of a degree of draw, which is hardly anything, effectively, this is just dead straight. So to conclude on the PXG Lightning Max 10K, this one very much so is the most stable. When you miss hit on this golf club, you do not get the same feeling of twist that you will do potentially on the others. So if you're looking for stability of the head, then the Max 10K absolutely gives you that. Sound-wise, it's a very nice feeling driver, very carbon feeling driver. You cannot mistake the amount of carbon, but then again, this driver is fully made of carbon, and it does make a decent carbon sound. Some drivers with carbon everywhere can sound very muted, very dull, where this one does have a little bit of pop to it, and so I actually quite like it. I'm not a great fan of super muted carbon. I don't want to hark back to the titanium days, but I have grown up with the whole idea of drivers make lots of noise, especially in the ping years and stuff. So having the driver, which is all carbon, but effectively gives a little bit of confidence inspiring pop when you hit it, is actually quite nice. Performance on this golf club is really good. Just have one little thought on you when it comes to its performance metrics. It's a very high launching driver, which is very, very good. And it also is a slightly lower spinning driver as well, which is also very, very good for optimizing your distance, regardless of what speed you swing. You just have to make one thing absolutely clear and sure that you get this right, is you get the right lofted head. PXG do make different lofted heads, and within your custom fit you need the maximum amount of wiggle room possible to make sure that you have that window of opportunity to make sure when you mess up, as all golfers do, on strike especially, that you have that wiggle room in flight so you don't have those too lower spinning flights that fall out of the sky. Hope you liked the video. If you did, go and give it a big old thumbs up. Hit that like button, YouTube like, so do I. Down there is the subscribe button. It's free. It's great for the channel if you could subscribe, so thank you. Next to that one is a bell icon. That's a notification bell. If you click that one, that'll let you know next time I upload another video. Hope you're well. See you again soon.